Welcome to The Fully Lived Life, a podcast for those who are longing to pursue the full life and want to break free from anything that holds them back. Listen in as two friends, a psychologist, Dr. Mary, and a life coach, Gillian, talk about life, love, and purpose through the lens of faith, science, psychology, and life experiences.
Well, Miss Mary.
Hello, Miss Gillian. It's good to see you.
Well, you know what? It's good to see you too, but I saw you just a few minutes ago.
Because we are seeing, this is the problem. Now that we're on video, you can see we're wearing the exact same outfit.
That's right. Hey.
Because we do tape in chunks.
Well, we have to. There's so much going on.
I know.
And can we just have true confession time?
Okay, what? You're going to confess something. I'm not confessing.
You're going to confess.
Oh.
What did you just almost do? Or thought you did?
What?
You thought you deleted our whole recording.
Oh my gosh. Yes. You know, this is what happens. It's been a whole season, months since we did the recording. And so I get a little bit like, I forget the steps.
Well, we had a big scare.
I know.
And then all of a sudden.
Thank goodness.
To our crew who saved the day.
That's right. Oh my gosh. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we are big fans of Dr. Henry Cloud.
Yes.
And we have imagined ourselves with Dr. Henry Cloud riding in the back seat along while we have our yammering conversations. And
we can picture him right here.
He's such a source of inspiration. He really is. He's so wise. And so we decided that we would like to continue this kind of growth mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So what am I listening to that's tangible enough to add into my life that's going to help me grow?
Right.
Is this going to help me grow?
Yeah.
And so we chose the book Never Go Back, which is an older book, but
goodie.
Goodness, it's so full of good stuff.
It is. Yeah.
So that's our launch pad for this season. And we're learning as you're learning, and hopefully you're along for the ride. As we said before, it's going to be great, but it's also going to be some hard work.
I think there's going to be some ouchies. I mean, the first chapter already.
Yeah. So the first chapter, the book is actually split into two sections. So the first section is 10 chapters on creating new pathways forward in our lives.
Well, so I'm good with that. New pathways.
We have to stop doing a bunch of stuff.
Well,
like never again.
Never again.
Never, ever, ever.
Never. Yeah, he does use the very firm word as never go back.
No, and he's like a therapist, so they don't normally use the word never.
No, because there's usually a lot of grace.
But he is full of grace.
That's true.
But there are just like, you guys got to stop these things.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it is out of like a sense of care.
It is.
For us because, people tend to repeat dysfunctional cycles.
What? Oh, see?
We all do. Because we're just doing life and we're not tracking what's going on. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves back in the same place.
And especially when we're stressed, tired.
Yes.
Under times and seasons of change.
Yeah.
We just revert to all our old junk.
I know.
Ugh.
I hate that.
Anyway, so the first 10 chapters, and then there is a section, which is the now what section. So now that you're not going to return to these things, now what are you going to do?
Right.
And so that's a great step forward. So how do we stick to these new pathways once we've started them and not return to those old patterns and habits?
I hope he has the answer to that.
I do too.
Because I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, you know what he says, which I think is really, really wise. He said, you never want to go back because you sabotage your success to live a fully lived life.
Oh, wow.
So here we are. We've got to ask ourselves the question, if I'm going to go back, am I sabotaging what I'm trying to build here?
That's a really great question.
It is.
The word sabotage just sounds so, like, I can't imagine sabotaging myself. Like I'm doing it on purpose.
I do it all the time.
But I think we don't realize that we're doing it.
But maybe if we can check ourselves before we return to these old things.
Yeah.
And say, this is a sabotage.
Yeah. So if you've been following along, we're in season 5 now. And sometimes it might feel like it's a rinse, repeat, where we're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. we're with you on that too, because we're sitting here talking as if we know what to do to live a fully lived life, but we're actually speaking from a place of making a lot of mistakes ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to give ourselves a lot of grace. The fact that you're tuning in tells me that you're a growth-minded person and that you really do want to improve and you want to transform and you want to be the best version of yourself as much as possible. But we are human. And so it's books like these and people like Henry Cloud that remind us that we have to kind of be intentional. We have to track what's happening, because we get into these habitual patterns without even realizing it. So that's why I think it's going to be a fabulous journey through this book. And when I say I hope he has a solution, I'm saying it tongue in cheek, because there is no solution to life, as in there's a solution. But I think there's habits that are good habits for us to do. And that's why this season's all about kind of reflection and accountability and tracking with how are we doing on these things.
Yeah, and I think this idea of never go back, the strong use of that word, is, can we preempt our go backs?
Oh, I would love that.
So I know some of my areas of weakness are areas revolving around control. So I think one of the things that I need to ask myself that goes along with this chapter is, where are some of the areas that I have a tendency to step in and want to control?
Right.
And where is my line in the sand going to be? You know, I've got to move it back.
Yeah.
So that before I get to that place where I want to control it, I already have like, oh, you're heading down that road. Never again.
Right.
So some building in of some strategies, I think is going to be really helpful for both of us and our listeners and viewers. But also, like, what is our line in the sand?
Yeah.
That we don't sabotage ourselves.
And I think that flexibility to adjust the line, depending on, because there's seasons where it's just, you're just too tender to do that. And I think that's the grace piece. Like, growth is not this linear pathway where you just take step to step to step to step forward, but it is a very jaggedy back and forth, sideways, all over the place. But ultimately, if you've got this heart of growth and teachability, and you've got people in your life who are willing to speak truth to you, and you're open to that feedback, then you are moving forward. And I would say, for being friends with you and walking with you, is that I do know that you've been wrestling with the issue of control, but I've also seen some tremendous growth in that area for you too.
And I have too. Like, I can see it in myself. I'll be like, wow.
I know.
Hello.
I know.
I just did that.
I know.
Or I didn't do that. So I agree with you. And I think that that is the point we want to get to, is, you know, like in agriculture, we know a tree is healthy if it's producing fruit.
Right.
But we also know that there's been a lot of pruning back in order for that to happen.
Exactly.
There's been a lot of hard stuff happening.
Right.
So where can we call out the fruit in our own lives and in each other's lives, so we know we're making progress and not sabotaging ourselves?
Right. And I would also add that it's growth in the midst of the reality of life.
Oh.
Like, we like to think that it's like I can put everything on hold and just focus on my growth. Right? I know. Exactly. But actually, if you can see that growth is meant to happen in the course of life, and that actually through some of our toughest hardships is our greatest opportunities for growth. Like, that is huge.
And I think that's one of the things that's underlying this chapter is with Never Again.
Right.
Is that, so you were just saying a moment ago about we kind of catch ourselves sometimes. And so if I know I'm heading into a stressful season.
Right. Yeah.
Can I remind myself that I am going to be tempted?
Right.
And set up some parameters for myself. Because in every season of life, there's a new way to bug us.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's a new way to get us. So if we can just go, oh, I know this season is going to be a tough one. What do I need to do to not sabotage it with the old stuff?
Right. And also, that's why I love the principles that he shares, because he's not telling us to do 1,000 different things. He's giving us principles for life.
Yeah.
And so this first chapter, never go back, actually, specifically, never again return to what hasn't worked, which would make perfect sense. Like, don't go back to what hasn't worked.
It's common sense.
It's such common sense. But that's the challenge, is that we do end up going back to what we know doesn't work. So I'm going to quote, like, when I'm reading this chapter, I wanted to underline everything.
No, me too.
He uses the word redemption, and he means that as in there being a reparative movement forward.
Yep.
So he goes, if redemption is to occur, something must be different.
Yes.
So a second chance is not a repeat of the first chance. A second chance is a moving forward to something new. There must be something new and different in order to move forward rather than backward. If everything's the same, you are repeating already what has been, and there's no reason to think the outcome will be any different.
No, but we fool ourselves. And I know, you as an Enneagram 2, right? So you're probably thinking, oh, I'll just give this person another chance because, you're a reformed people pleaser.
Yeah.
But you're probably thinking, oh, this person surely's changed by now.
I know. This is where,
right?
That's the thing is I can be so insightful about people, but so not.
So you've probably given people
a lot of
chances when there hasn't been fruit shown.
Right.
When they have maybe said that they're sorry for a behavior or they say that there've been growth, but there's no evidence of it.
Right.
So you're returning to the same relationship. It hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And I know as an Enneagram 8, I think, well, if I can just control it from this level, then the whole thing will change.
Right. Or you think to yourself, I'm not actually really controlling it.
No.
But you are in a different way. But it's, well, don't you want truth?
Not ouchie truth. No, but it's true.
Yes. So I think that's the key is it's not that we don't go to repair relationships or situations or make things better, but there has to be demonstrated fruit that the person or the situation is actually different, that there has been some growth.
Yes.
Otherwise, we really are repeating the past and it's not going to change.
Something that I've said before on the podcast and I continually kind of challenge myself about is what's the data? If I can pull out the emotions and the feelings and the hopes and the wishes about a changed situation and just go, what's the actual data in myself and in others?
Right.
It's actually very effective.
Yeah.
Because if we're in relationship together and you're constantly letting me down, I can hope all I want and wish all I want.
Right.
For the relationship to be different and for you to change. I can't make it happen.
No.
And so if there's no fruit on your end, there's no reparation, there's no true data that shows that you're actually changing.
Are you trying to tell me something here?
No, I'm not. But you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
What's the data?
What's the data? Yeah, and it's so tough. So I think that if we're going to be really honest with ourselves, if we think about the different aspects of our life, our responsibilities, our tasks, our habits, our relationships, where have we been going back with the hope that things will be different, but they actually aren't? And we're actually stuck as a result. So where are we stuck in our lives?
Yeah, and where are we kind of lying to ourselves?
Yeah. I'll tell you where one of the things that I'm working through is the reality that I am getting older. And with that comes some limitations of my mobility, like whatever. And so I need to be more aware of health choices that I make. But I like to go into denial that I'm still a young person, a young chickie poo, as I like to call myself. And so I continue to still take chances that I shouldn't take because it takes a little longer for my body to repair.
Yeah.
So like that incident with the e-bike was me like not being careful about the fact that if I fall, it takes that much longer for me to recover from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so true confession on my part.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little bit older than you. I still think of myself as having more capacity than I actually do.
Yes.
So, and because I've picked up a little bit more of the physical labor around our house.
Right.
While my husband's doing physio. I'm walking down the stairs today. I'm thinking, why am I hurting all over my body? Because I was doing way too much. Like I was pushing myself physically to get some stuff done around the house.
Right.
And I think I have all this capacity when I really don't. And then I pay for it.
Well, can I call you on something?
Oh, well, please do.
This whole inner critic thing.
I know. Well, that's another episode.
Oh, are you trying to deflect?
Yeah, I am.
Well,
totally deflecting.
I guess I should give you permission to do that. But I'm just saying that this thing with the inner critic is you pushing yourself beyond. It's like you have this thing in your head. I have to do this. I have to finish it. I have to do this well. I have to do it perfect. Well, I don't know what's going on in your head. And then you push yourself.
I know.
So anyway, there's my little.
Okay, well, we'll get back to that another day.
My little love truth.
I don't feel like talking about it today. I've already bared my soul once.
Okay, all right.
Seriously.
All right. Yeah, so that's the thing. So if a person or a situation has truly changed and is worthy of our investment, we will be able to see tangible reasons to believe. This is what he says.
And worthy of investment because when you think of things that we may return to, in the book, he's talking about a relationship where the people are on different ends of the spectrum and it looks good at the beginning.
Right.
And then the old patterns start to set in.
Right.
Or he's looking at a job situation where it's been a toxic environment and you keep hoping that things will change and you leave, but then you may go back.
Right.
So like change really has to have happened for you to even give. There should be second chances, of course. That's what grace is all about.
Right.
But if there's no proof, then you are only hurting yourself.
Right. Yes. And then one thing I would add too is that sometimes we don't feel like we're going backwards, but we're staying where we are. So that's something to think about too. So we're choosing not to leave a difficult or toxic relationship or a situation. So we're not going backwards per se.
Right.
But we're not going forward. So if you're not going forwards, you are actually in some ways going backwards. Like you're still in that same place. So I think he's using the same principle.
Yeah, and
for people who are in situations that are not good for them.
Yeah, and when you think about a tree that's not bearing fruit, why is it not bearing fruit?
Right. Yeah.
Something's dying. Something's off.
Right.
And you got to look at the data again and go, okay, there's a reason why it's not bearing fruit. So if I'm not moving forward in my life, I've got to take a hard look and go, okay, what's going on here in me that's not creating the growth that I need and desire?
And that's freeing, actually, because you're looking at what's going on in you.
Yeah.
And that's something you have control over versus other people or the circumstances. A lot of times we don't have control over it.
True.
But we are choosing to put ourselves in this situation or in those relationships. So what's going on in us? And sometimes it's because we're in serious denial. Sometimes it's because we're actually really, really afraid. A lot of times I think, at least for me, I go backwards because I'm really afraid. I'm afraid, or I'm anxious maybe is a better word, that if I don't go back and fix the situation, somehow it's not going to work out. Or somehow it's my responsibility to fix it or fix the person.
Yeah. And for me, it's if I can go back and control another couple of pieces of it, the outcome might be different.
Right. I know. It's amazing how much in denial we can be.
We're totally lying to ourselves.
Yeah. So then the other thing he says too is he goes, his question for the section is, am I different? So aside from the situation, sometimes going back can work because we have changed and matured. So I have gone back into situations that I've been in before that has been not so good, but I'm a different person.
Right.
So I can go into the same situation, and even though they haven't changed, I have. So my responses are different. And because I have that maturity, well, I don't know if maturity is the right word, I've had that growth, the situation can have a different outcome as a result. I'm not as likely to fall into those dysfunctional patterns. So there has to be something different about ourselves before we can make something work that didn't work before.
And I think that goes back to what we started talking about at the very beginning of this episode, is that line in the sand, right? If we've been able to analyze and say, okay, well, this is where I sabotage myself.
Right.
So if I can move the line back this way so that before I hit these points, I'm stopping it. I think that's where self-awareness, self-insight can really lead us to make some meaningful changes in ourselves so that we don't return to those things.
Right.
We never again return to that thing that didn't work.
Yeah. So I think the reflection for me and what I want to share with our listeners and our viewers is think about the pain points in your life. We always want to avoid it, let's be honest. But that's also the place where there's something that needs to change or to shift. Yeah. So think about the pain points in your life. If it's in a certain relationship or a ministry or your job, something is going on. And be really reflective about what's keeping you there. Are you going backwards? Is that situation... 3 things. Has the situation changed? Or have you changed? Or has the other person changed?
Right.
And so if there is change, then perhaps that pain point is just an indication that it's a time of tremendous growth for you or the relationship. But if you haven't changed, the situation hasn't changed, and the other person hasn't changed, then that pain may be telling you it's time to get out.
Exactly. And
or make that big change that you have to make.
I would even say, even if you've changed, the other person seems to have changed, or there's some data there that says, give yourself a period of time. Like, that you go, okay, let's give this a month or 6 weeks and then review. Because maybe I'm picking up on things that I hope for, and there might be some glimmers, but it's not really sticking, maybe for me or the other person. So give yourself a timeline.
That's good.
So that you can review. And if it really isn't what you'd hope for, you've got to draw your line and go, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because sometimes it does take time to see the fruit.
People can be repentant for a while.
Yes, they can be. And that's true. Yep. And then all of a sudden it goes back to old patterns.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the thing. You want to look at the longer term for sure. And then you want to also be honest about the fact that you might have very selective memory.
True.
So you remember all the times that you got all those things done, and you forget all the times that you were lying on, unable to move because you're in pain from having done too much. Right? So it's, the selective memory thing is important.
I understand that. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Mary.
I had to use an example. Might as well use you. Because I'm still in denial, okay? My memory is very selective. I have no issues. I know. That's where we call selective memory.
Yeah. But that's a good point, too, because, in anything, we can do that 20/20 thing, right? Where it's you look back and you remember with fondness, and there was a lot of junk in the middle.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So never go back. Never go back.
Never go back.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Cloud, for kicking us off.
Yes. Okay. Well, next principle is what?
The next principle is never again do anything that requires you to be someone you're not.
I have a feeling it might be mostly focused on me for that one. But, well, anyway, tune in. We'll be back. Honestly, we will.
She might not be.
I might not be. You know what? It might be just the Gillian show.
Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Fully Lived Life podcast. We hope you found it encouraging and helpful. Be sure to follow or subscribe so that you never miss a new episode. And if you enjoyed our show, please help spread the word by sharing with your friends and family and posting on your social media. Thanks for listening, and tune in to our next episode.